Hi, brothers and sisters. Praise the Lord Jesus. I give him all the glory and praise. He is good all the time, and he loves us so. But today I'm going to do this video, and I thought it was important to share. I had it a couple nights ago, and so what happened was I was at my grandma and papa's house. Now, they have been passed a few years now, and their names were Patricia and Edward. And I've had a lot of dreams happen at their house. Excuse me. But they owned, in real life, they owned Vineyards. And I used to go and visit them a lot when I was younger and in my teenage years. Okay, so I'm at this house, but I was in the backyard with a man named Frank. And so in the backyard, it was kind of quarantined off with wire fencing and stakes, this huge garden, and it was my garden. And off to the side, there was this big tree, and I was standing next to this tree, and there was a girl with me, and I think there was a guy and a girl with me, and I'm looking at the tree, and there's fruit all over it, this ripe fruit. And I pick a couple of the fruits off, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, because it was like an apple tree, but I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, something's weird with this apple. It's like an apple tomato. It looks like a tomato, but it was sweet like an apple. It was really weird, but I was eating it, and I was like, I was observing it, and it tasted good. And the guy next to me, because I didn't know, it was tomato and something else, and I asked the guy next to me, I was like, what is this thing? What do you call this tree? And he told me the name of this tree, but I can't remember the name. It was really weird, and it was foreign. It sounded like a foreign name. And I was like, And then I looked up at the sky, and I saw all these eagles. And they were flying around in the sky, and I knew that they wanted what was on this tree. They were coming in for a landing. And I looked down at the ground, and I saw an eagle standing next to my leg. And so I began to break this fruit up and feed them pieces of it. They were like swerving around like vultures or something. I don't know. And let's see. I kind of have a slideshow here. Yeah. So I was breaking it up. The outside looked like a tomato, but on the inside it was apple. And the eagles were coming in, and I was feeding them little bits of it or something like that. I threw it on the ground. And then the next part of the dream was I was on the other side of my garden, and I'm sitting there, and my daughter's sitting there, and this guy named Frank's sitting there. And he said, look at all these, I had tomato plants and all kinds of vegetables. They were everywhere. And he said, look at all these fruits and vegetables. It's time to harvest them. And I said, yeah, I know. I have to get a big, huge box and just pick them all at once. And then what happened was, I was going to take these vegetables and like put them all together. Like some of them I take like 3 or 4 of them. And then I saw this like little, idea in my head in the dream that I was going to paint them like VeggieTales, like Larry the cucumber and Bob the tomato, because it was Halloween. And I was like, oh, we're going to decorate with VeggieTales. And then I ended up, like the next little scene in my dream, I ended up across the road, which is just a little tiny road. It's just like a farm road. There's hardly any traffic. And on the other side, there was grapevines. And I had some of these VeggieTales that I had made, and we had already painted them or something. And let's see. Let me show you some pictures here. So there's Bob the tomato and Larry the cucumber, but they're pumpkins. So, and then, okay, that's what the Vineyards looks like on the other side of the road and behind my garden. And what was going to happen is me and Frank discussed it. We were going to make these VeggieTales and put them on the beginning of each row of the grapes. But it was like fall time, like how it is here. The grapes had already been pruned. And yeah. And instead of, so we go from the garden in the tree area over across the road next to the vineyards, and there's a big tree right there. And what I'm looking at is Frank had tore out this yellow carpet, and it was laying on the grass. And I said, "What's that for?" And he said, "That's something that I've been working on a previous project, but we're not going to worry about that right now." And I was like, okay. And then there was I looked against the tree, and he had, I guess there had been yard stakes. Where are they? There had been stakes on the side of the road over there, like lawn-looking decoration things that were Halloween, kind of like this. And I remember seeing in my dream that one of them said Halloween Xing. It said Xing. And Frank had taken all of them out. I think at this point Frank represents the Lord. But he had taken all of the stakes out and leaned them up against a tree. This tree that was right there. And it was kind of like a mulberry tree or something. And then I was like, okay, yeah, I was looking around. I was asking him questions. I'm like, okay, well, we could paint put all these vegetables together from my garden and then paint them like the VeggieTales. And then we're going to put them on the edge, on the beginning of each of these grapevine rows that have already been pruned. And so he had the first one, and he had a string connected to it, and he said, "How about we hang this one up in the tree?" And he was reaching up against that mulberry tree where those signs were leaning up, and I said, yeah, that's a good idea, because we were decorating over there. We were taking out all this Halloween stuff, and we were putting in VeggieTales from the garden, the harvested garden, okay? And I'm going to tell you something interesting is, let me see if I can find it back here. Okay, where I live in California, and with my papa being a grape farmer and stuff, what they do, if you can see in this picture, is they put roses at the beginning of each of the row of grapes. And the reason they do this is because roses and grapes are susceptible to the same diseases. So the farmer will monitor the rose bushes, and if they see any mildew or funguses or some kind of rot or whatever on the roses, that means that it's more than likely all over on the grapes. And so they'll go and spray or treat the orchard or the vineyard. And roses and the grapevines have this kind of relationship thing going on. They're like indicators of their vineyard. So, but instead of these roses being there, we were going to put these VeggieTale characters in the places of the roses. So, this dream is very, lots of hidden meaning going on in it. Some dreams are just kind of harder to figure out than the others. It's very symbolic, and I believe that. Let's see. Just to give you an example, I had a dream that I was at my grandma and papa's house, and the same house that with this dream, and I was standing in the backyard, and I looked up into the sky, and these two missiles went over my head. And I got down on my face and started to pray, and then I ran into the house, and I turned on the TV. There was nothing on the TV about it at all. And then I looked over and I saw my husband. Now, in the dream, I was like, what are you doing here? Because he never met my grandma and papa. But I looked at him and I said, quick, where's a place we can go in the blinking of an eye? And the next thing I know, we're driving in this white car to this place called Knight's Ferry. So in that dream, it was missiles and rapture. And Knight's Ferry, I mean, the Lord is the night, and, He's our ferry. He gets us across that bridge, across those waters. So in this dream, I think the eagles coming in, I think maybe in the first part I was representing America or something political was happening. And then it freaked me out because after I had this dream, I saw that Putin made a comment to one of our officials that were over there. Bolton, I think his name was, but he said, has your olives ran off the tree, leaving only the arrows, or something like that. I was like, what? Or has the eagles eaten all the olives, leaving only the arrows? And I thought, oh my goodness, I just had that dream about the eagles coming down and eating those weird hybrid fruit things. And when I was tasting them in my dream, I thought, well, they taste okay, but they're really weird. They were just really weird, so I fed them to the eagles. And so with this Halloween, and then, when the grapes are pruned, it's the fall. The leaves are starting to fall on the ground, and we know that the vines, I mean, that's a whole parable in itself. And the Lord pruning things, pruning the branches off, and if it doesn't produce fruit, just things like that. So I just think that it's a reference of things that are to come, and there's so much symbolism in here. But you guys just pray for me because, I've been on a lot of medicine, and it's making me feel sick. I'll talk about that in another video. I've been diagnosed with some things, and I just feel really sick. It's just been hard for me this past month. So, but I love you guys, and God bless you.